Hello, Dr. Michelle.
Hey, hello, Jen. It's such a pleasure to meet you in the flesh. Well,
I
sort of.
know,
Amazing.
finally.
I love the name of your podcast, Life's Deceit.
Do,
What a really crafty, like it's a little edgy, right?
you know, everyone says, I'm glad you said that because for a second I'm like, should I change the name? And they're like, no. So when I first started out, I titled the podcast Commitment to a Deceitful Liar, which is the title of my book.
Ah,
And then I'm like, I need a shorter name, Life's Deceit, because we live in a society where people run with what they hear and what
yes.
they see.
Yep.
We live in a society where whatever we're taught and we hear, we tend to just believe that and we stay so loyal to those things instead of taking the time to do our own research, talk to the person and figure out who they are. What are you
Well,
really about?
and of course, my whole thing about the past and
Yeah.
people being stuck in the past is because they're stuck with life's deceits. What they
Ooh.
taught as children is a deceit that prevents them from being who they truly and authentically are.
So I'm so excited to have you
Thank
on the
you.
podcast, not as a guest, but as a friend.
Thank you.
And
Yes, I feel the same way. I'm so happy to meet you.
I'm so honored, and I want to say happy Women's Day that passed, but
Oh,
it's
yes.
still Women's Month, and we are celebrating women all year round because it's not just a month where I find that people, when we see these months come up, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, it's this month. Then after that's done, we forget about it. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not as important. But we are women and we are important to each other. And the work that you are doing, thank you for being present. Thank you for walking boldly in who you are. And your calling, accepting your calling. So I think we forget that. We have to accept it first. Yes. Acknowledge it and accept it.
Yes.
And live in it, live in truth.
Yes.
So for you to be able to do that, I honor you, wonderful woman. And thank you so much for what you're doing. You will continue to do.
Well, thank you so much. And you too, of course.
Thank you. I'm trying, I'm doing it and I'm trying. Somebody says, don't say trying, say you're doing it. I'm doing it.
You're doing it, yeah.
So I would like to know, Michelle, where are you from?
Okay.
What do you represent?
Okay.
And what is your hope for women in the work that you are doing?
Okay, so the first question was, where am I from? So I grew up in New Jersey on the East Coast. And I spent, a good portion of my time there, very influenced by that East Coast vibe, high energy, fast-paced, and maybe a little uncaring. So I moved to California, where I have been for the last almost 30 years. So that's been quite a bit. And it's kinder, it's sweeter, it's softer, although a lot of East Coasters have moved here, and so it's getting a little rough.
Jersey Shore.
But that's where I came from. And then, so I represent the spiritual being having a human adventure. I help people to recognize who they really are so that they make the most out of their short but glorious time in this three-dimensional plane. That's my purpose, is to help other people to wake up, to realize why they're really here and what they're meant to be doing. That fulfills them. It's not like there's some sort of thing outside, it's inside, and they need to access it from inside. And because I work with people around grief and loss, I see grief as a doorway. Because most people don't change until they're, pressed up against the wall. And grief is one of those things that pushes you against the wall.
I love that. And you living in your truth and purpose, what do you hope that other women would draw from you and learn?
I hope that other women will have the courage to find their true voice, to find their true passion, to have more fun in this life, and not to have it be such a grind. Of course, that's what I hope for myself too, is to learn to be present, to appreciate everything, to find joy in their lives.
To find joy in their lives.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that because as women, we find it such a hustle and bustle. We're
Yes.
just we're just doing life, we're just moving. And sometimes when we're just moving, we forget to live. We forget to embrace who we are. We forget to embrace our skin that we're
Yes.
in and just the
Yes.
beautiful things of life and live for ourselves. So I truly love that.
And it's like when you start to learn that it's all inside, it's like you can live without necessarily changing any of the circumstances you're in. It's more an inside job. It's starting to look and perceive things in a different way. So it's partially what you focus on, and it's partially the interpretation you make about things. And it's a practice. You have to work on this every day, because that mind of yours, programmed from childhood, is jumping in there and, like just ratting on you all the time. And you have to develop that discipline.
Yeah, that is it. You have to develop that discipline. So you are a doctor. And, when we're little girls, we always dream about what we want to become. All these fancy things, or well, what are we going to do when we're older? Did you always know that you wanted to be a doctor?
Now, this is not a medical doctor. This is a
No,
PhD. Okay.
yes.
So let me tell you a little story. When I was growing up, I grew up in a large family, and there was a lot of competition for the little bit of love that was there, because even my parents were competing for love and attention. So it was like
Yeah.
this crazy. And I found that being good in school was a way to get approval and acknowledgement. And so I got really good in school. And I kept on doing that. And I went all the way up to the PhD, which for me was the epitome of lovability. But it wasn't. In fact, that was the first time I felt that my spirit stepped in and tried to wake me up. And I was very, very hard case. And so the first thing that happened was I got my PhD, had finally finished it. And I asked my dad, who was like, I adored him. He was my hero. And I said, Dad, what do you think about my PhD? You know what he said to me? He said, oh, I'm so ashamed. I never finished my college degree. Did I not know that? Did I not know that I was making him feel ashamed?
Oh, no. Instead of proud.
Instead of proud, he was, but that was his thing. But at the time, I saw it as a smack in the face. And then the next thing is I went to my boss, who had a PhD, right? And I said, Dave, would you introduce me to social services as Dr. Peticolas? You know what? And you know what he said to me? He said, why don't you tattoo it to your forehead? The word PhD dropped from my resume and my mouth for 13 years.
Wow.
And then finally, the same boss promoted me and fired my husband, because we were working for this was a group home program. And he fired my husband. So my husband left me for another woman.
Oh, no.
So I was a little confused. And I ran off to a spiritual community where relationships and work don't matter.
Don't matter.
Yeah. I actually traded my father, my husband, and my boss for my spiritual teacher. And I did everything I could do to earn and win his love. But he was not that kind of a teacher. He was dead set on teaching me to let go of that habit. And he finally did. And it was a really, really, really horrible lesson, but it stuck. And what I don't know if you want me to go into the details of that particular lesson.
I do. I do
Okay.
want you to go into that particular lesson because, as we talk about our experiences in life. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Our experiences help shape us, but it doesn't define who we are.
Right.
So that experience,
Okay. So that'll help maybe some of the people who are listening because they'll understand. And so anyway, I was trying to do everything. I edited his books. I promoted his workshops. I videotaped his dance shows. He was a shamanic drummer, and he had dancers coming from all over the world to learn how to dance from spirit, from that source, from that inner core. I wanted to be one of his dancers, but I was out there videotaping. And then one day he took the video camera away. And I said, well, okay, now I can be in the dance shows. And at first I was only on the sidelines. And then little by little, I got to dance with fewer and fewer dancers. And finally, one time in New York, he did Christmas workshops in New York. And he was invited up to this university in the Bronx to put on a dance show. And he invited me to come. And I'm like, does he want me to dance or to videotape? So I brought along my dance costume just in case. And I get there and I look around and I realize that all the women that are there are on his A list. And I'm like, does he want me to dance? So I asked him, I said, should I dance? And he shrugged his shoulders and he said, you could dance. But first I had to go out and videotape. So I'm out there in the auditorium and it's frigid because this is winter time. And I'm dressed in a belly dance costume, bare belly, bare shoulders. I was freezing to death. And I'm out there and I'm videotaping, right? I'm videotaping and I'm videotaping. And an hour goes by and 90 minutes goes by and 2 hours goes by. And I see the same dancers getting up for the second time. And I know he has forgotten me. Tears rolling down my cheeks, dropping on the video camera. I'm like so upset. He must have sensed it because then he sent somebody out to replace me. And I make my way up to the stage. I couldn't dance. I was frozen. I was so mortified. I was so devastated. And I was really pissed. I was so angry. And afterwards, one of his students, a male student, came up to me and he said, you really are a good dancer. So of course I burst into tears. And then he invited me to he had a class that he taught. He says, why don't you just dance for yourself? And I did. And it blew my mind. Because suddenly, for the first time, I was not dancing to please anybody. I was dancing because it was connecting me to spirit, to source, to who I truly was. And I felt connected to myself and my body. And from that point on, I said, I'm not ever letting anybody decide whether I can dance or not. I'm dancing for me.
For me. Mm-hmm.
For me. And you know what? The next time I went to my teacher's workshop, he invited me to dance and gave me a real solo. So I figure I must have gotten the lesson. And now I take that to, it's a work in progress to everything I do, to learn not to be doing things to get other people's approval, to stop trying to win the love of other people, to accept that I'm lovable, just who I am. Yeah. And that's a work in progress. It takes
time.
It takes time.
And for that love for yourself to show.
Yes.
I feel like people, when they see that you're earning for them to accept you, it's like they notice it and they won't give you the attention you're looking for because you need to give it to yourself.
That's right.
So that is
Sorry. Yeah. So my favorite quote is from the Beatles, the gurus of the 60s, which is they have this song called "And in the End." And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. So you have to make it yourself. You cannot extract it from other people. You have to make it yourself.
Yeah. Because then if you're extracting it from everybody else, it's conditional.
Totally. You give away all of your power to other people to determine whether you're okay or not.
Yeah.
That's
Your whole
terrible.
power, and you can't be giving your power to anyone. So this Women's Month, it's all about owning your power,
Yes.
because it's yours to own. It's not anybody else's to
Right.
control or manipulate or make little small adjustments to suit them, but it's
Yes.
all yours.
Yes.
So I enjoy that story that you told about dancing. I used to love dancing back then too. Not the whole belly dancing, like, hip hop and stuff. And I love the attention.
Yeah, yeah. But when, well, for me, it was getting into that a very high state from dancing. And dancing was one of the easiest ways I could get into that meditative state, because I would become totally immersed in the music
Yeah,
and let the music became my partner, and I would dance with it.
that was it for me. I love the music. If I
Yeah.
hear music, I'm just all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, when did you decide to become a grief coach?
Ah, okay. So that's another story. I hope you don't mind the stories, but anyway,
No.
that's another story. So after I had that experience with my teacher, I started learning, and then I met my current husband. I had the first one left me, and then I met my current husband, and we started dating. And I realized, I guess because of all the spiritual work, I don't know, because suddenly I had this awareness about what I was doing. Whenever I felt like he was pulling back, I would pull back. And I realized that if we both kept on doing it, pretty soon there would be no
Yeah.
relationship left.
Yeah.
And so I did a very, very deep process, which was early childhood healing. And just shortly after that, I finished that very deep work. My parents started dying. First my father, and then my mother. They died 6 months apart. And I came back home when my mother was dying. She was dying of cancer. And my mother, you won't believe this, my mother was a toy designer, not a little home, Geppetto workshop toy designer. She went to New York City and sold her designs to major toy companies
Wow.
like Gund, Hasbro, EG Dolls, Sears. I mean, her stuff showed up, and she and my aunt, who was her partner, actually showed up in some doll books. They were that impactful. But I had issues. We always have issues with our mothers, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so anyway, we're sitting in her studio going through her papers. I'm kind of like the taskmaster daughter, and I pull up one of her papers. It was a Xerox copy of one of her designs, and I hand it to her and I say, "Do you need this anymore?" And she looks at it. She goes, "Oh, I guess I'll never finish that project." Her
Oh,
words pierced my heart. It was like, oh, for the first time, I got what deadline really means. So instead of engaging her, because I was not a grief coach back then, instead of engaging her, I took it back and I said, "We don't need to deal with this right now." And I shut her down. It was one of my biggest regrets, because later on, when I learned more, I said, "Oh my God, I could have had actually the intimacy I had longed for all my life with her."
yeah.
And I blew it.
Yeah.
So, but it woke me up, because if my mother, who for me was the poster child for living your life passion, if she could have regrets, where did that leave me? I was a people pleaser. I was busy trying to earn everybody else's love. And I didn't even know what my favorite color was. I was so focused on the outside world. And that woke me up. That's when I decided to make my documentary film, which I'm telling you, I was scared through the whole process of making my documentary. Actually, there are 3 films. And it was fortunately, my husband continued to cheer me on, and I kept on going. And it was kind of like the commitment to the people that I was interviewing that kept me going.
Yeah.
But it was huge because finally I was doing something that was meaningful to me.
I love that. And you deserve it.
Thank you. So
You
then
know,
that segued into me being a grief and loss coach. Now, whether I should have stayed as a documentary filmmaker, it's a lot of work. But
yeah.
so is being a coach. But I do like that coach. I like being able to empower people, empower women to be who they can be.
You know, when I seen that you're a grief and loss coach, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Because, you know, back then, you never really saw coaches or therapists that specialized in certain areas. It was more like an all around thing. And
Right, life coach.
no, right. And life coach,
Yeah, life
relationship
coach.
coach, but nobody wanted to go because they thought, okay, well, if I'm going to a coach or I'm going for therapist, something must be wrong with me. Right.
Right,
So
right.
it's like a plague for some people still. But when I saw that you were a grief and loss coach, I was like, you know what? I don't think we realize how important and impactful the coaching that you do is. And I sat there for a second. I remember going back to my childhood and how much I was grieving as a child.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
grieving doesn't mean it has to be somebody that you lost. It
No.
could have meant something that happened to you and you're grieving that situation,
Yes.
that trauma, that pain that you're carrying. Like you're literally carrying, you're giving it birth, you're giving it life. You can't heal from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember because I was reading about you and I was looking at your interviews and I was like, I remember when I lost my grandma and for a
Mm.
whole month I grieved.
Mm.
And I thought that I was grieving her loss, but I was
Mm-hmm.
actually grieving my trauma and the fact that I wanted her to know the truth,
Oh.
but she's gone. So I carried this pain for so long and
Oh.
I cried and I cried and I wept and I treated myself poorly.
Mm.
Was like, it's my fault. I should have said something. I waited too long.
Yeah.
I didn't go
Yeah.
see her. You should have tried harder. I
Yeah.
was like stripping myself apart. I was
Yeah.
grieving in ways I didn't understand. And I'm like, wait, I'm grieving.
Right.
But I wasn't
Yeah.
just grieving her loss. I was grieving the trauma that I experienced as a child.
Yes.
And now that she's gone, everything now is boiling over.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I seen that you mentioned complex grief in
Yes.
your work. Can you explain what complex grief is and how it differs from traditional grief?
Good question. Complex grief is a grief that is magnified by uh, earlier childhood griefs that have never been healed, or it could even be, even young adulthood, but a trauma that has never been healed that usually relates to either probably some sort of abandonment. Because what's grief? It's being abandoned by somebody that you
Mhm.
love. Or actually, part of my grief when I was a child was also the grief of losing trust in myself, because I stopped trusting myself. I decided that I had to be what everybody else wanted me to be because I couldn't trust that I would be taken care of if I were myself. So that was a huge loss. So that's what complex grief is, because what happens is it gets magnified and it brings everything up. It's like all those griefs are connected, they're interconnected, and they all pop up. And people just oftentimes don't have the bandwidth. So they repress it. They press it back down again because that's what we're taught as children, hopefully less now, but certainly when I was growing up. And then they can't move forward because they haven't dealt with the emotions. They haven't dealt with had closure around their loss. And so that's what I do, is I help them to not only grieve the current grief or whatever loss has brought them to me, but the underlying grief that explains everything. So I want to give you an example of one of my clients so you can get a sense of what this complex grief is like. So this woman showed up in one of my free presentations, tears running down her cheek. She comes to me and she says, I'm grieving the loss of my husband. He died 20 years ago. So I started working with her, and it turned out the reason why she liked my presentation. So the reason she wanted to work with me is that she had been continuing to grieve this husband, and it was influencing her relationship with her son, her adult son, who was the spitting image of her husband. And so every time she saw him, it was tears running down her cheeks, which was kind of making things difficult. Well, the first thing I taught her was how to grieve. So many people are afraid that if they grieve, it will never stop. But I teach people how to grieve in a way that they don't get swamped by it. They don't get immersed in it, and it lasts for a long time. In fact, most people, once they get permission to actually grieve, and I kind of, okay, so now what's going on? They stop grieving in that moment, 2 minutes or less. People do not cry a long time. What causes people to continue to grieve? The mind. The mind tells these stories that recycle the grief over and over and over again. When I say, no, you can't do that, you need to just be in your body and allow your body to express. Changes everything. Oh, so anyway, I wanted to continue about this woman. So the underlying story was that when she was a young child, her father left their home because her mother was a bit of a party girl, or more than a bit of a party girl, a little unfaithful. So then she was taken care of by her grandmother, and then her grandmother died. And then she was left as the oldest of two children, the oldest daughter, to make sure to hold the family together. So basically, she lost her childhood. Okay, so she's trying to hold it all together, going out into the bars late at night to bring her mom home, so the social services won't come along and take them out of their home. So she grows up and she meets the man of her dreams, and she marries him. And she, finally, I can relax. I can just let him take care of me. So he dies because the universe was not, or the spirit or whatever, it was like, oh, you're not done. And she loses him. And she was on her way to losing her son and that relationship until she finally did the work to grieve all those losses.
This is deep. And the reason why I say it's deep is because healing, grieving, is all a part of the process. And, people talk about healing. You have to heal. You have to do the internal work. We see it all out there. We see the quotes. Right. We see everybody. We see the motivational speakers talking about healing, doing the internal work, finding self. But I've never heard anybody actually tell somebody it's okay to grieve.
Yeah. Not only okay, it's essential.
It's essential.
Yeah.
And a part of mine, like I coach people too, and I say, you have to allow yourself to feel.
Yep.
Feel the way you feel about yourself, the situation, the people involved. Process it.
Yep.
And then if you want to and you can, write down why you feel this way.
Right.
How are these emotions making you feel? Where's your thought process? Because the mind is so powerful.
It is.
And it could be such a dangerous thing to ourselves too, right?
Very, very, very dangerous.
So when you talk about grieving, that was something that when I wrote my first book and I was writing, I was crying, I was feeling, I was grieving. I went through so many different emotions because I needed to break it down. I needed to process the way I felt, because for so many years from a child, I suppressed all my feelings.
Yep.
And a lot of people do that.
Yep.
They suppress their feelings because they feel like they just need to rush and get it over and done with. Okay, I'm going to go to keep going.
And of course, that's what our culture wants us to do.
That's what our culture wants us to do. Hurry up and get over it and then move on with your life and shut up.
Yep. That's it.
So
That's it.
I listen, your process has me excited because we need to allow people and tell them that it's essential for you to grieve. Cry if you want to cry, be angry. And I tell people this all the time. When people are healing, they go through different stages. Some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to sex, some people turn to gossiping. Some people even end up hurting their close loved ones
Mm,
because they do not want to feel what they're
yes,
feeling really on the
that's right.
inside. So
Yes.
the grieving process, like I said, everyone hears the word grief and they think, okay, well, you lost somebody, so you're grieving the loss of somebody. No, I'm grieving my experiences, my
Yeah.
trauma, what I went through.
Right.
I'm grieving the fact that I didn't get to build a relationship with my mom and my dad, and now they
Oh,
passed away, and I'm
yeah.
craving it.
Yes.
So the way that you break it down is so amazing. And I want to ask, how do you see it manifesting in people's lives, especially in the context of generational trauma?
It manifests in people's life by, well, like imposter syndrome, that you don't believe in yourself, and that you are afraid of stepping out or being your true self, or your real self, or going for your dreams. And so you settle for less because it feels safe.
Right.
And so that's it, is that you, and yet your life is never completely satisfied. It's okay, which is like ho hum, and people will go along with that until they're pushed against the wall, or they finally decide that they need to do something about it. Maybe they get laid off.
Mhm.
Sometimes being laid off is one of the best things that could happen to you, because it forces you to look at yourself in a different way. It allows you to uh, review what you've been doing in your life and say, is this me? Maybe this is a time for me to do something different.
Yeah, I agree. And you talk about imposter syndrome, and that's something that I got more familiar with about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because, sometimes we hear that little voice in our head telling us, don't do that. You can't do it. It's not for you. What are you trying to do? That's
Right,
not even your area.
right.
Somebody who's going through imposter syndrome, what advice would you give them to try to overcome it or even talk themselves out of it? Because you literally have to talk to yourself.
Well, I would recommend journaling, although maybe with the younger generation, they might record themselves as opposed to
Yeah.
writing it down. I find when I journal that I handwrite, because I find that when I'm on the computer, it's a different experience. It doesn't connect quite with the core. I'm already editing myself, whereas when I write and it's in handwriting,
Yeah.
then I don't edit, and I just let it stream. And I find things out about what's going on by journaling, by writing down what I feel. Okay, what do I feel today?
Mhm.
And so you could talk about the imposter syndrome. You could write about that. How do you feel not good enough? How am I holding myself back? What do I really want to be able to do? And you could even, listen to the two voices inside. I have a graphic about two voices, the devil voice and the angel voice. And so the one voice is saying, who do you think you are? Why do you think you can do that? And the other voice is saying, well, I really want to do this. And the other one's saying, well, you're an idiot, you're going to fail.
That
And
is
the other
true.
one's voice is saying, but I really want to do this. And so you want to start working on changing or addressing and confronting the negative voice. So with my clients, I used to give them these little rubber or silicon gremlins. And I would say, when you hear that negative voice, you bring that little gremlin out and you give it a little squeaky voice. And then it say, you're no good. Who do you think you are? And when you do that, it's funny, and you diminish its power.
I love that. I love that method. And I love that method because when you said you give them the little squishy, it reminds me of these they have these new toys, Squishmallows, where kids like they'll squeeze them whenever they feel stressed or whatever. They'll play with
Oh,
them.
nice.
And my daughter has a few, and sometimes I'll get in and I'll be like, okay, I got this. I got this today. So it's true. Like if you have something that's, you're talking back to yourself, it's like empowering yourself. It's kind of
Yes,
like giving yourself mantras. I can do it. No, you can't. Yes, I can. It's like, it's a cool and neat way to diminish those things.
to diminish the voice. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And give power back to yourself. You are
Yes.
you are amazing.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. For people that are grieving, are there any signs that, loved ones should look out for when they're looking for complex griefs in individuals? And how can someone begin to recognize these signs in their own lives?
Oh, what a perfect question. So I so I have a free complex grief checklist that people can take. It's 10 questions. It's really easy. And then once you're finished, I will send you an assessment and the meaning for what the different answers mean. And then you also get a follow-up of emails that help you to implement. I actually have a process that I teach people working around grief and loss, and it's called SERVE. Only it's not that you're serving somebody else, which of course people pleasers are always doing. It's letting the grief serve you. And so I
That's your
talk,
six that's your 6-step serve system.
yes, the six
Okay.
step serve system. So to get complex grief, the checklist, you just type in, and don't type it in the Google search, type it in the browser, complexgriefchecklist.com, and it will take you there, because it transfers it. So you don't want to just put it in the Google search, because it'll get all confused. Put it in the browser at the top.
Okay. And it will pull up that checklist that they
It
can get access
will
to.
pull up the page that will talk about the checklist, and then you can sign up to get it, because I need to get your email to
Right,
send you
to
the
send it to you.
assessment.
Okay, guys, please go and check that out and go through the checklist, do the process, answer the questions. And Dr. Michelle is going to send you guys all these cool tools that you can look out for and use in your daily lives. So you have skipped ahead of me and you have started talking about your 6-step serve system.
Yes,
And you said it's designed to help individuals transmute complex grief. Could you walk us through the key components of the system and how they contribute to personal growth?
sure. I'd be happy to. Thank you for asking. So serve, SERVE. The first one, the S, is surrender. And this is probably one of the most difficult steps, because people want to resist their emotions. It's surrender to the emotions, surrender to the ups and downs of grief, because there's no way around it. There's no magic pill or magic wand to get rid of it. You have to go through grief. So the first one is surrender. The second one is E, which is embrace. And that means embrace your community and allow your community to embrace you. 9 times, and probably every time that you're dealing with grief, there is a loss of connection, usually a significant bond if you lose a person. But even if you move to a different part of the country, you're losing your friends and connection there. Or if you lose your job, you're losing connection. Or, if you drop out of college, you're afraid that, people are going to reject you. So it all has to do with relationships. And why is that so important? Because human beings are a social species. We are literally wired to bond with each other. And when a bond is broken, it triggers a fight, flee, freeze response, because we feel threatened on a very biological, cellular level. And that's what grief is. Grief is a survival response to loss. So
Grief,
that's grief
grief
is
is
a
a
survival
survival response
to loss.
to
Yeah.
loss.
So that's E. Then the next one is really, really important, and you need help to work with this because it's hard to do it on your own. And that is R is reframe. You want to change your story around your loss. A lot of people will see, they'll feel victimized. They'll feel like, God, why did you do this to me? Or they'll feel abandoned by the person who died, or they'll feel it's their fault. So I have helped people work with their regrets and their resentments, because oftentimes, people don't even want to admit that they're actually resentful of the person who died because they left them with this mess.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
So I help them to work around that story and the belief that they have that they will never love again, or that they will never have a life again. So I have another story. I worked with a man who was from the Philippines, and he believed that he only would ever have one wife. And she had passed away. She had a pretty unhappy illness. And he was struggling because every time he would hear a radio show or he would read a magazine that referred to her particular disease, he would grieve a lot. And he felt ashamed by this. And he felt stuck, like, oh, I'm still grieving. And I said, what if you were to consider that every time you grieve, it's not bad. It's actually a sign of how deep your love is for your wife. So embrace the grief, because that's proof of your love. It totally changed him. He was out of the group in a couple of more weeks. It was like, oh, you mean it's okay?
It's the little things that you could say to somebody to really make the light bulb go off.
It's
true. And they look at things differently.
I had another person who came to me, and she was grieving because her father died in an institutional setting, and she wanted to take care of him before he died, but he wouldn't let her. And so she grieved. 3 years she was grieving this, that she had not stood up and demanded that he let her do what she wanted to do. And so she felt like she had failed him. And I said, do you believe in an afterlife? Do you feel like maybe your dad's watching you right now?
Right.
What do you think he feels about what you're doing? And he's on the other side. He can't do anything. How do you think you're making him feel? Oh my gosh, she said. It is like, oh no, yeah. I don't want to make my dad feel like guilty.
Yeah, it just dawned on her, right? Mm-hmm.
It just dawned on her. And immediately she even wrote me a letter afterwards. She said, I've stopped grieving. I'm not going to torture my dad anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's reframe. That's to change the story in a fundamental way that helps you to see what's going on. And then the next one is vision. Where do you want to go next with your life? And when I go through the reframing, I help them to see their whole life as this continuum, even past the loss. So what's next? What's the happy ending? Where are you headed for? And how can you be more fully yourself and really be of service in the world? And that's the vision. And then finally, the last D is to express, to put it into the world, to birth that vision. So for me, it's like, it's not just about getting over the grief. It's about utilizing your experience to be of service to other people in the world.
Serve.
Serve.